How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Average Joe, the series where I'll be taking a look at a vehicle and telling you whether or not I believe it's worth the average player's time, or in this case, their money. On today's episode, we're going to be looking at the MiG-23ML, a Rank 7 Soviet premium fighter jet sitting at battle rating 11.3. With all the introduction out of the way, let's jump right into what this vehicle is capable of, starting with weaponry. The primary weapon of the MiG-23ML is going to be the GSH-23. Now, if you've seen my MiG-21 video, you know that this is my least favorite gun in the entire game. It has a very high fire rate, which sounds good on paper until you realize the gun has basically no ammo to speak of, only 200 rounds on this plane, and it does basically no damage per shot. However, fortunately enough for you, if you're going to play this thing, the gun is very rarely used at the battle rating that you're going to be playing, so you don't really have to worry about it that much. Just keep in mind that if you shoot somebody with it, don't expect it to actually do any damage. Moving on from the gun, let's talk about the missiles, because the missiles are simultaneously pretty good and awful. So first off, I want to talk about the R60M, because it's definitely my least favorite missile that I'd actually still recommend running. Primarily because the thing is super flare hungry, so it's going to go after just about every flare that's fired, unless you're an F-14, then good luck flaring this thing. But at the same time, it has no range to speak of. Like, I would not trust this thing to reach a target going away from me 2 kilometers away. I just wouldn't. If you've used the AIM-9J or the AIM-9P, it feels very similar to that, but it does pull harder, but it also loses energy even faster. However, you can also carry 4 of these along with 2 other missiles, so it's not the worst thing because you can basically use them in head-ons whenever you get within a kilometer of the person, you fire the missile off, and if they didn't pre-flare, they're pretty much guaranteed dead. Now, there's a decent amount of other missiles that this can bring, however, I'm only going to talk about 2 of them because, well, the others are basically redundant past these 2. So I'm going to talk about the R24R and the R24T. Now, to my knowledge, these are the exact same missile other than the fact that the R24R is guided by radar and the R24T is guided by infrared. Now, unfortunately, I don't have any footage of the R24T because I just personally don't bring it. I just bring the R24Rs and then 4 R60Ms. To my knowledge, though, it basically feels like using an R13 M1, but it's all aspect and has slightly better range. Now, the R24R in my experience feels like a less consistent, lower range version of the AIM-7F if you've ever used those. It pulls slightly less, and it's much easier to notch in my experience, but at the same time that might just be because the radar in the MiG-23 might be easier to notch. I'm not quite sure, I don't have a lot of experience with Soviet aircraft beyond this point. Now, whenever it comes to ranges that I would say you should fire the R24R, I'm gonna say, compared to a Sparrow, where I'd say between 5 and 9 is a fairly consistent range, this thing I would not recommend firing beyond 7 kilometers ever, and you should probably try to use it within 4. Otherwise, the missile sometimes just decides, you know, the ground is looking pretty tasty. I think I'm gonna go hit that. Now, on the topic of radar, let's talk about yours, because honestly, it's not the greatest, but it's definitely not bad. The radar has both a search and an MTI mode, which MTI basically functions like post-Doppler if you've ever used the Phantoms or any other NATO aircraft. It seems to be a lot easier to notch from what I've seen. Now, if you want to know all the specifics of radars, go watch Deffin's guide. He made an incredible guide on radars. If you need to know basically anything about them, it will tell you what to do. All you really need to know, though, about this radar is that you have about a 30-kilometer range on it. Don't use your missiles past 7 kilometers if you want them to be consistently hitting, and that it's going to be looking for targets based off their velocity to your velocity. So if somebody's not moving based on where you're looking, odds are you're not going to be able to lock them, or at least not going to be able to hold a lock. While we're still on the topic of radar, I want to talk about your RWR. Now, in my opinion, this is one of the worst RWRs at this battle rating that you're going to get. It doesn't give you basically any information about what's going on around you. You're not going to know what plane is locking you. You're not even going to know what type of thing is locking you. It's not even very precise with the direction that you're being locked in. So just keep that in mind. It's not that good. It will give you basic information, which hopefully if you're experienced in this battle rating should be all you need, but just note that it's not going to give you a lot to work with. Now, the last thing that we're going to talk about whenever it comes to the equipment that you can carry, it is actually your 60 large caliber countermeasures. Now, these countermeasures are very good, especially considering the fact that your engine is not nearly as hot as a lot of others around this battle rating, like the Phantoms. So you should be able to flare off anything short of a AIM-9M or a Magic 2 pretty easily. Now then, on to your flight characteristics. Now first off, I want to start with your speed, because you have a very good top speed around 1400 kilometers an hour. However, it does have one downside of you're not engine limited, you're airframe limited, meaning your engine will keep producing thrust past the point where your wings will break. So keep that in mind. Now, to stay as close to your top speed as possible without breaking your wings, you're going to want to use half afterburner. Now, to use half afterburner, you're going to want to put your throttle to as high as it can go, and then use the scroll wheel, go down one tick until your afterburner shuts off, but you're still at 100 throttle, and then move it up one tick again, and then you should have like 101 or 102% on your throttle. That will put you at half afterburner. This will also use a lot less fuel than your full afterburner, but the main advantage is the fact that you're no longer going to be going fast enough to take off both your wings. Now then, when it comes to maneuverability, you are also very good, especially because you are a variable wing sweep aircraft. Now, because of this, you can either let the game automatically adjust your wings based on your speed, or you can do it yourself by binding controls to it. I recommend doing both, typically staying in the automatic wing sweep control where the game does it for you, but whenever you go into a dogfight, controlling it yourself can give you the extra lift you need to be able to get a shot. Now, unfortunately, I don't actually have any footage of me dogfighting in real lobbies because it just does not happen at this battle rating very often, so I will have some footage of me and a buddy doing some dogfights in a custom game. Just keep in mind, it's not going to be the same thing. We were mostly messing around, so don't take the dogfighting in that as an accurate representation of what it's going to look like in your normal matches. Especially because you're not going to want to just climb in every single engagement whenever it comes to real matches. Otherwise, you're just going to get hit by a radar missile. Now then, let's talk about the price. So for $70, you're going to be able to get the plane itself, 20 days of premium, and 2,500 Golden Eagles. Now, just so you're aware, you only really have one other option if you want to grind out the entire Soviet air tech tree, and that's the Su-39, and I'm gonna say now, out of the two of these, this is definitely better. But does that make it worth it overall? Now, if you ask me, for $70, no, I don't think it is. However, on sale for $35, if you really want to get, say, the MiG-29 SMT or the Su-27, yeah, I can't blame you. It's much better than getting the Su-39. So, yeah, when it comes to being on sale, I would say go for it. Especially because the MiG-29 is a very fun platform, and if you want a good wing-sweeping aircraft, it's really this or the F-14, and you kind of have to grind a lot if you want an F-14, where this is just going to cost you $35 on sale. So, yeah. I can't say no to it if it's on sale, but if it's not, I would skip this one. With all that out of the way, I'd like to thank you all for watching. Please let me know if there's any vehicles you'd like to see in the future of this series. Have a good one.